VR technology is a technology we can use to immerse them in a realistic situation where they have the opportunity to interview families or potentially victims in that low-risk environment.
And it gives them that opportunity to be overwhelmed in a safe environment versus having that first exposure to being overwhelmed when they're out working with a family.
They may yell at you, they may cry. How they react to you depends on how you question them. And so the series of questions that you ask provides a different experience. There are 16 quadrillion potential pathways through this experience. No one's getting the same experience.
I'm your host, Kristina Finch. In this episode, we're exploring how virtual reality, or VR, is being used to transform training for Florida's child welfare professionals. Virtual reality allows learners to step into realistic child welfare scenarios before they ever meet a family in the field. It helps them practice decision-making, communication, and critical thinking skills in a safe, supportive environment, one that feels real, but where mistakes become learning opportunities. Today, I'm joined by three of our colleagues who are helping bring this innovative approach to life across Florida. Katerina Mañas is the Institute's Program Director of Learning Technology Integration. She oversees the development of the Meet Kai Virtual Home, a tool designed to simulate the types of home environments child welfare professionals encounter using AI and immersive storytelling to create lifelike experiences. Kyle Cook is the Institute's Program Manager. His team is focused on helping university students, especially those studying social work, engage with virtual reality simulations that connect classroom learning to the realities of practice in the field. And Kristen Puckett is the Learning and Development Manager in the Department of Children and Families, Office of Child and Family Wellbeing. She's leading the implementation of VR training within DCF's pre-service programs, helping case managers and child protective investigators build skills in areas like safety planning, removals, and court hearings. Kyle, let's start with you. Can you walk us through what VR training looks like in the context of child welfare education? Maybe speaking to how you are introducing VR into the learning experiences of students preparing to enter the child welfare field.
The intent in all of this is that we want to put students in a high stress and high stakes environment with low risk. That's the whole idea to the virtual reality piece. Our approach is that, first we have to get faculty buy-in, right? Get them to see the value in it, which wasn't hard with students in the social work environment or any environment. They're usually young and don't have a lot of life experience, and we don't have a lot of opportunity to throw them into life experience, especially in a child welfare front. We don't want them, out dealing with families as a student. VR technology is a technology we can use to immerse them in a realistic situation where they have the opportunity to interview families or potentially victims and various other things, again, in that low-risk environment. The way we approach it is we generally do a full immersion VR session with the students, and then we have a reflection session. We call it the debrief, and that's where we believe the learning actually happens. I mean, they get the experience in the full immersion piece, but in the debrief, the faculty members and the facilitators have a chance to go through the experience with the student, and they can talk about key points, and that really depends on what lessons we're trying to provide at that time.
I was going to ask, as a follow-up to that, what's been the response?
Now, I will say that we've had some demos and we've had a positive reaction from the students. So the cases that we have, there is one case in particular that has a follow-on case that goes with it. And immediately the students wanted to see the follow-on case. They wanted to know more about the case. They wanted to have some closure around it, but they were fully engaged. They expressed immediately like, wow, this was impactful. We even had some students that were triggered in the process. And so I will say low risk. It's not no risk in that we are covering sensitive topics, and often there is a reaction. We've been navigating some of that, but the initial response from both students and faculty has been positive, and they really like it. They're asking for more.
I can appreciate that. And I appreciate you guys taking the stance of this is low risk, not no risk, but we can explore some of that, right? So with some of the other services that we offer at the Institute, we can figure out, can we engage our well-being facilitators, our coaches, to kind of lean into how can we help with that debriefing situation or providing a safer environment for them after they've gone through this experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And we try to talk about that with them in sort of a primer environment before we get into the cases so that they're aware that there are triggering things, without killing the integrity of the simulation piece that we want them to go through. We try to give them that space to take care of themselves. We've had students leave the simulation, and we, again, give them space for that. Part of it is that we don't grade the results of what's happening, and that, they're not receiving a letter grade or a score. We believe the learning happens in the reflection, and that there isn't really a right or wrong, just things you can do better and improve upon, or things you can capitalize on next time because you did them well. And those are the things we try to highlight. And, what can we do in the future to, prevent that from happening, or some other device that we need to use there.
That's pretty cool. Thank you. Kristen, the department is supporting innovation with a new pre-service training program called the Florida Academy for Child Protection and Family Resilience. Our institute is collaborating with DCF on the Academy. Explain how this training is expanding opportunities for experiential learning like VR for newly hired child welfare professionals.
Thank you all for having us. We're super excited about the opportunities to partner in virtual reality and other experiential learning platforms. What it does for us is very similar to what Kyle said, is that it gives us an opportunity to really introduce our new learners to having a lot of their senses challenged at one time. And so for our older staff, our more experienced staff, they've had the opportunity to have that stimulation and learn through experience how to do their job while they're still having all of these things go on around them. And it's a skill that they've developed over the years out of necessity, but they didn't have the opportunity to have this experience in pre-service. And so by putting on VR goggles and really being immersed in this situation, they are able to hear things and see things and have these questions and have someone talking and really look at all that's around them. And it gives them that opportunity to be overwhelmed in a safe environment versus having that first exposure to being overwhelmed when they're out working with a family.
So I'm right when I say currently you're using two kind of pre-designed scenarios, right, within the training. What are the plans for expansion?
So right now we have two. We have one in foundations that goes to all of our child welfare professionals in training. And that one is Sophia, and that's where they get a very early introduction to this family. And then when they go into case management, they work around safety planning with Monica. And so we have those two additional scenarios that we're working to build into case management for sure. And we're just really excited about it. We had a recent meeting with all of our training managers, and we brought those scenarios and we said, hey, for anyone who wants to come, preview these and check these out ahead of time. And one of our training managers, who's got 40 years of experience in child welfare, watched one of the scenarios. And when she took the headset off, she said, I just really need a minute. I need to process my emotions on this one. And so it really has that realistic effect of making people think and challenge and feel, even though they're not out in the family's home.
That's interesting. I was having a conversation with someone recently, and they were like, what's the point of creating the virtual experience, right, when our work is so human-centered? And again, I think it speaks to that idea of like, let's create a low-risk environment where people can practice. But the reality is, like, the meat lies in that debrief, right? So you guys are pairing it, you're putting it into the curriculum, not separate of. It's an addition, it's an added innovation. Can you kind of speak to, like, what do you think the impact will ultimately have on the training experience?
Gosh, there's a lot of impact. And absolutely what you said before I got to the curriculum, I thought, what are we trying to do here? Aside from all the stimulation, the questions, I thought, man, I would have gotten so much more information if I was actually interviewing. And so I was wondering where it was going to go. And so when we got to the debrief, that was really the point of it, is that you don't get enough information and you're trying to make a decision without enough information and articulate how you got there. And really just, what did you see? I mean, in that simulation, there's a baby crying in the background and a toilet flushing, and some folks don't even hear it. So when we talk about what did you see, what did you hear, what did you learn, they're all recognizing that there was so much going on that they might not have seen or heard everything. And so they're being able to self-reflect on, why didn't I hear that? And what was I focused on instead? And then also it really helps them to start articulating what they saw and how they made decisions based on that information. And that's one area that we've gotten a lot of feedback from our judicial partners, that our staff need more experience in how to articulate those decisions and those processes. And so this gives us a very early step in, what did you see? What did you hear? What did you learn? And how do you form that into a statement?
I wanted to point out that the VR experience that we've been talking about is a headset experience. So it's that traditional, when you think of virtual reality, you're putting on that Oculus headset and you're going into the experience. We did have some feedback early on that that wasn't for everyone, or also that the logistics with running something like that in a headset could be a challenge. As an alternative to the traditional headset experience, the Institute has chosen an AI-driven tool called Meet Kai. to simulate family home environments for child welfare professionals, which is computer accessible, so not in a headset. I'd like to turn it over to Kat at this point and kind of maybe you could give us some background into what made Meet Kai stand out amongst other VR or AI options. And maybe you could speak a little bit to how this tool enhances learning compared to the traditional training approaches we take.
Yeah, absolutely. So Meet Kai actually approached FSU because they were interested in entering the human services space. And they were incredibly open to truly collaborating with us and customizing the experience to fit child welfare training needs. What really made Meet Kai stand out was their ability to create realistic web-based environments that, like Christina said, don't require headsets or other special equipment. So accessibility is a big factor for us. And we wanted something that any child welfare professional could use right from their computer. So we were drawn to how Meet Kai combines 3D environments with conversational AI. That means eventually users will not only be able to walk through a virtual home, but they'll also be able to interact with virtual family members in real time. So that level of engagement makes the learning experience just much more dynamic and reflective of what happens in the field. So this type of simulation allows for real application. Those in training can make the observations, identify safety risk, and practice decision making in this safe, controlled environment. And it'll bridge the gap between their classroom knowledge and the real world practice, hopefully just helping prepare them to feel more confident and prepared for when they're out working with families.
And I know that there was a work group that was convened. And I remember we were pretty intentional. Kristen, I think I hounded you for a while to make sure that we had case management, investigations, perspective. I think we have faculty on there as well. We were like, we need somebody to engage from a faculty perspective. And Kat, I think we also included a parent perspective. So we had some lived expertise on there in terms of an impacted family member. The idea really is to make it a multi-use tool. It's to figure out how are we creating these innovative tools, but leveraging them to meet different needs. The most bang for our buck, I guess, is what we're trying to do. And Kat, I know that the first phase, and you spoke to this a little bit, is really focused on creating this baseline environment where you can go in and just walk around and observe. So the long-term expansion of this, can you kind of maybe speak to what that looks like for us?
Yeah, so long term, we want this tool to evolve into a full simulation ecosystem with the interactive family members. We want to eventually develop more diverse home environments and branching scenarios that mirror those real world situations. So our goal is for it to eventually just become a standard part of child welfare training and helping them build confidence before they ever step into the field.
And I think, again, what's interesting about Meet Kai is that it is a customized solution. So we're customizing it. That does not mean that it's going to be an all-encompassing virtual experience. It's
Right.
still going to be paired with that training debrief or those training assets to make sure, because the last thing we want is for a tool to give a yes or no answer. I think you said that, Kyle, earlier. You were like, this isn't intended to be right or wrong or yes or no. We would never want that. You don't want a machine telling people, yes, you did that right. Phase 1 and 2 are really on designing this environment. And then how has the Institute brought in perspective to design the debrief part? What are we planning for the training component?
Well, our next step will be involving subject matter experts to help develop those scenarios further out and then collaborating with Meet Kai on what the subject matter experts come up with. And they will come up with a training packet on what the scenarios involve and what they should be looking for and observing in each scenario.
Thank you. I get excited about innovation. I think it all sounds interesting. But the reality is that it comes with challenges, right? These are unique challenges. There's no blueprint for how to do this many times. I'm pretty proud to say most of the time that I think Florida is ahead of the curve when it comes to implementing virtual reality statewide. I know that other states are doing this in more separated areas. So I guess all of you, and I could probably start with Kristen, can you offer insight into this? What are some of the things that you've experienced that if there's another organization trying to roll this out that you would tell them?
Sure. So, challenges wise, our staff were very excited to have VR. So, we didn't really have any challenges with acceptability. They recognize the strengths that it gives us, they recognize all the benefits from it. But we do have some staff who are hesitant to put goggles on. We have folks who are either pregnant or who had seizure disorders or who get vertigo who were hesitant to put those on. And so that was one of the challenges. It's been a very small amount of people, but one of the challenges was how do we be able to engage them in this activity if they weren't comfortable putting on goggles? The other thing, obviously, is the number of goggles. Our classes, we ordered goggles based off the size of the class and the average size. And so sometimes we have a class of 30. And so it takes a lot longer for us to get through a VR cycle because we have somewhere between 5 and 10 goggles that they can use at a time. We have to keep them charged. We have to clean between and then also engage the class while each group is going through. But again, we've overcome those challenges by building in other activities that they can be working on, having smaller group conversations while we're, waiting for other staff. But those really are the only challenges that we've run into. We have good reception. We have the Wi-Fi that we need. We have enough staff experience and training to be able to cycle through and use the materials and the goggles appropriately and clean them and all of those things. So storage-wise, all of those things have gone really smoothly. It's having, enough to keep the class busy at the same time, and then also those few people who are not comfortable using the goggles.
And Kyle, I've heard this from you as well. The feedback that I got was, we need more goggles, right? Because logistics play a big role. I mean, you've done all this work, you get them in there, and then you want to make it run as smoothly as possible. Would you agree with Kristen that that's been primarily the thing?
Logistically, we've definitely had the same issues of the number of goggles, having to come up with activities while one group's going through the goggle headset, another group's working on those activities. And I think we're accomplishing our goals in the same way. There are ways to go about this if you stagger the participants and you give the debrief while another group is going through. So we just get innovative with that. Of course, more goggles would solve that problem. One of the other things, and Kristen talked about it in her initial answer, trying to demonstrate the purpose of what's going on in the questioning, because there is an initial reaction of, I can't quite get the question that I want when you're in
the actual experience.
In the actual experience, yeah, because you have certain questions that you can choose from, and there's a purpose in that, and there's a reason they ask the questions that they ask. But as a first-time participant, you don't really understand the process or flow that you're moving through, and so until you get to that debrief and you understand that you had a different experience than your peer did and the other people that are in the room, and so we have a debrief as a group experience so that we can talk about how there was a different result based on what you did or what you asked in the virtual reality headset. There are 16 quadrillion potential pathways through this experience. No one's getting the same experience.
Yeah.
Depending on the questions you ask, the AI agent reacts differently to you, and they may yell at you, they may cry, they may, how they react to you depends on how you question them. And so the series of questions that you ask provides a different experience. And so in the debrief, you get to talk about those things like the baby crying and the toilet flushing that some hear and some don't. And I'm not convinced it happens every time.
Right.
I don't know, because I haven't done this 16 quadrillion times, but I know each time that I've done it, it's been a different experience for me. So being able to portray that is difficult in words. So when people go through the headset, they can understand in a deeper way.
I appreciate what you two are saying, because the reality is, like, when the Institute made the decision to use this technology, this tool, we were like, this is going to be easy. It already exists. They've thought it through. But the reality, you still have to consider it the way that you consider any other implementation, is where are we fitting it in? How are we briefing people on it? How do we introduce this tool into there? So outside of logistics, really being thoughtful about the utilization and the impact that it may or may not have. I think you said it earlier, the reaction. How are you going to manage the reaction after? Do we have protocols in place for if somebody wants to walk out of the experience? Kat, do you have any other additional insights to offer, challenges that you've experienced with rolling out this tool?
I think it really just comes down to people getting used to the new tools. It can be challenging at first because it's something new. So I think we do a good job spending a lot of time focusing on communication and demos to help staff and partners understand how these tools work before they start using them and how it will enhance their training. And then once people get to experience it for themselves, I find that they usually see the value in it right away, and that helps them want to learn how to use the tools.
Like you said, we have to teach people how to use these tools. We have to get them comfortable. I think the headset is a little bit easier, but still requires you to really support them so that that doesn't become a barrier. So again, a lot of that front loading of information is incredibly important when you're trying to do these. So I appreciate the conversation. I know that these two tools are just the beginning of what we're exploring. I know that there's new innovations that are happening every day. And I think I'd like to kind of end this a little bit on asking you if there was another organization that was considering VR. What would you tell them? What would you say to them to either sway them for it or against it?
I think what we do is we travel with our VR headsets and we show people. We say, hey, let me show you what this looks like. Let me show you, how we use it. Let me talk to you about what our debrief looks like and our activities and our curriculum around it. And everywhere we go to conferences with them, when we go to individual meetings, we say, hey, do you want to try out our VR?
It's been a very popular booth at
it has
the
been so
conferences.
popular. No one wants to be near us.
Yes.
At the conferences, I will try to stop in just to say hi to my staff, and you can't even get to the table because everyone wants to see what it's about. But even again, smaller meetings, when I meet with the universities, when I go into leadership meetings, I say, hey, we do have our VR if anyone wants to stay after and check it out. And we always have at least a few people who want to see what we're doing, and they just really enjoy it. So I would say, that anyone who wants to use it, come try it out, come see what we're doing and see how it fits in. But there really is no limit to how you can have conversations around what they're seeing and how they feel about it and what it brings up for them, and how they would use their words to talk about what they saw in a family-centered and parent-focused way. And it's just been a really great experience for us. I can't imagine any industry where this wouldn't be a helpful tool.
Thank you. Kyle?
Really, for the learner, this is a step away from that didactic lecture style of teaching that we do often. Someone stands up in front of the room with a PowerPoint and points at things, which is effective in some ways, but this takes it up a notch. And for the learner, they really engage with it in a different way. Obviously your subject matter is going to make a difference in how you can engage with a virtual reality headset, but especially for our purposes in child welfare, it puts you in an environment that you can't recreate easily. It engages the learner. And that's a big point of education is, make sure the learner is engaged and they have a purpose in ingesting whatever it is you're trying to feed them.
Yeah. Kat, anything else to add?
Yeah, I mean, kind of just echoing what was already said, just any institute or organization looking to explore VR, just to start small and build in stages, pilot a couple scenarios, collect the feedback from users, and then just keep refining as you go.
I love that. Not every audience is going to hit the same. So we've had completely different reactions with investigators, case managers. I know, Kat, you demoed the Meet Kai virtual house with licensing. Licensing is really focused around our foster care system. And I was like, I don't know. It hit so hard. I mean, they were like, come back. We have so many ideas. So it's been really interesting. We do tell people, try it in different environments and see how this is going to go. I really would like to thank all of you for coming in and sharing your knowledge and your experiences with us. If you're interested in learning more about this episode and our guests, please visit our website at www.ficw.fsu.edu. You can also follow the Institute on Facebook, Instagram, X, and LinkedIn at FSU Child Welfare. Thank you to our Director of Communications, Emily Joyce, our producers, David Heller, Brantley Jones, and Alina Bachman, and our audio engineer and editor, Izzy Kring. Finally, thanks to all of you for tuning in. I'm Kristina Finch for the Florida Institute for Child Welfare.